Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well, and I thought we would yet again do a bit of a detour on this channel where I give my thoughts on a season of Black Mirror episodes. If you guys are unfamiliar with Black Mirror, it's a pretty intriguing and once amazing sci-fi show. I guess you could kind of categorize it as a sci-fi series where each episode takes on a different theme, a different story, a different perspective. Usually there's a very awesome, I guess, point to be made about technology and the way it affects us in the modern era, how we could see it progressing into the future in a sort of dystopian way. Now, if you guys remember season 4, I wasn't really a big fan of season 4. Came out with a video about it. I will link to that video at the end of this video. All of my complaints about every episode voiced right over there. Season 5 is still a kind of a mixed bag. Still got a lot of reservations about a lot of episodes. And I thought that we might be a little bit on the uptick here in terms of quality because Bandersnatch, you guys might remember the movie, the film that Black Mirror came out with recently that was a sort of a choose-your-own-adventure thing. I didn't comment on it on this channel, but I actually thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was a creative project. Sure, there were some weird holes and qualities to it that I think weren't exactly like logically smoothed over all that well, but again, conceptually, I thought it was cool. I thought it had some really awesome scenes. I thought it had a somewhat satisfying ending. And I don't know, for something as unique as it is, I think it could have failed pretty hard. I think it could have fallen flat on its face, and yet it didn't. I think it mostly came out to be a very entertaining movie, a very entertaining project. So I thought as a result of that, we might be looking forward to overall a better and a more exciting next season. But Series 5 is not only half the size of Series 4, it's also got a pretty mediocre batch of episodes in it. I mean, granted, nothing as tedious as Hang the DJ. And spoiler alert, of course there are going to be spoilers in this episode, so be wary of that, be aware of that. No ending in season 5 as dumb, okay? One of the dumbest sci-fi endings of all time. As dumb as Guinea Pig Memories. Guinea Pig Memories! It still aggravates me to this day whenever I think of fucking Guinea Pig Memories. I lose it. I really do truly lose it whenever I think of Guinea Pig Memories. Which, again, if you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, I recommend watching season 4, if not only just for a laugh, okay? Because Guinea Pig Memories, but I digress. So nothing quite as dumb as Guinea Pig Memories at the very end of an episode over here, in my view. But still, a series of episodes that were confusing or presented some interesting ideas, but didn't really capitalize on them as well as they possibly could. To start off, let's talk about the episode Striking Vipers, which is essentially about two guys who are friends. One of them is a family man, and they're playing this video game together. It's a fighting game. It's interactive. It is immersive. It allows them to sort of like transport their minds into the game. They're fighting avatars and they're just beating the crap out of each other in this game. But then we suddenly find them locked into this weird love/affair scenario where they have suddenly found out that they can not only fight in the game, but they can also fuck in the game and make out in the game. So all of a sudden, these two guys who are friends have found themselves in a place where they're just like playing the game together all the time, and they're not doing it to fight. They're just basically doing it to screw each other in the game. And obviously not as themselves. You know, we're talking about like two grown black men in the episode, but when you watch them in the fighting game, one of them is a female fighter and one of them is a male fighter, and they both seem to be like of Asian descent. So, you know, they're not literally themselves in the game. They're playing as other characters in the game. I think that this presents a lot of interesting ideas in terms of what sex means and how sex could potentially change in the future as a result of VR technology, of immersive VR technology that allows you to feel the sensations of such a thing. It could mean a lot for sexual identity. It could mean a lot for what exactly will happen to relationships as far as monogamy goes when having sex in some kind of like simulation, even if you're not doing it with another person. I mean, you know, you could have a program where you're having sex with a computer and it feels just as good as sex with another person. Like, what will that mean for relationships? What will that mean for human connection in the future? Like, so many awesome questions come up as a result of this proposition. Just like in an episode from Series 4 that I loved the premise of, Archangel, but then again, the premise presented isn't really capitalized on in an interesting way. The storyline mostly becomes this boring scenario where one of the main characters, or rather the main characters, is trying to hide this from his wife, and he's embarrassed and he's confused. Instead of exploring any of the weird ways that this technology could potentially impact love and human relationships and so on and so forth, we instead reach a point where the two dudes meet in person and have to make out because they're basically afraid that fucking each other in this video game as other characters means they're like gay or means they're like in love with each other or something. Which is such a fucking stupid conclusion to come to. It's such a stupid idea to explore. And it's such a guy thing too. It's like, of course, two random dudes screwing each other as different characters in a video game would literally start sitting there thinking, what, does this make me gay? Am I gay now? I'm afraid I'm gay because I'm having sex with my male friend as a woman in a video game. Am I gay now? So such a stupid exploration of this idea, of this technology. I also love how they just miraculously, in a way, they stumble upon this idea that they can have sex in the game. Whereas if this was reality, this would not just merely be something that you could just, you know, figure out. You know what I mean? Like, programmers would literally have to think of ways for this to exist in the game. It wouldn't just be mere accident that you could do this in the game. On top of that, it would not be a secret because literally nobody would own the game to actually fight in it. Pretty much everybody and their mom would be using the game to fuck each other. So that would become the primary function of the game. The point of the game would not be to fight anymore. It would be to have sex. So there were some plot points that didn't quite make sense. And the way, again, that the technology and the concept was explored was super weak and super boring. And instead of diving into that deeply and creatively, it just became this weird love triangle scenario that ended very anticlimactically with basically these two dudes, you know, with permission from the wife, of course, can just bang the hell out of each other in the game. They could bang the hell out of each other in the game once a month. Okay, once a month, you just ram each other for as long as you want in the video game. No repercussions, no questions asked, and you just go ahead doing that. So super weak exploration, anticlimactic ending. So much more could have been done with it. There were some points where I was like, okay, you know, didn't see that coming. That's kind of cool. Whoa, what an interesting idea. But then it just, you know, goes off of a cliff into just a total lack of imagination. which is unfortunate. Following that episode, we have Smithereens, which was directed by James Hawes, who has also directed a Black Mirror episode prior, just like Owen Harris has directed a Black Mirror episode prior. And this one is essentially about a man who kidnapped someone that he thinks is higher up in a tech company, and he has basically got this person in a car at gunpoint, and he's demanding to speak to the CEO of this really big Facebook type company. This really big Facebook or Twitter type company. I'm not exactly sure. They don't go into great detail exactly what this app does, but it's a social media app. It's addictive. You can't take your eyes off of it. And this whole hostage situation is just slowly, it takes forever, slowly progressing to a point where this man finally gets to talk to the CEO of this company. So, there's all sorts of talk in the dialogue about how, this guy could want to extort you, he could be insane, although it's very clear to you as the viewer the entire time that this guy has some other kind of motive that he's working toward here. He's not just, calling to say, I want $1 million. I want $1 billion. This is clearly not why he's calling. There's some kind of greater reason why he's calling that was insinuated by the opening scene where he was, with a mother who was mourning the loss of her child. But the connection here isn't completely clear. It's not entirely clear. But you still know that this guy has some kind of greater purpose as to why he wants to talk to the owner, the founder of this social media company. And so, we eventually reach that point. It takes a long time. There are cops waiting to take the shot. There's people trying to talk him down off the edge, like, no, don't do it. But we eventually reach this point where he gets to talk to the owner of the social media company, which, that should tell you that, there's not a whole lot about technology. There's not really a strong sci-fi element to this situation up until this point. You could swap out the Facebook, the social media, you could swap out a dozen different things and it would play just pretty much like, your average action movie hostage situation where the hostage taker is a sympathetic character and there's some kind of greater good motivation behind what he's doing. So it's kind of a tough, confusing situation where there's a victim, there's a bad choice involved, but you kind of want to see his mission carried out because it's clear to you from the scenario that it's at least to him, it's for the greater good, or it's something that he needs. He's not doing it to be a bad person or extort anybody. So again, not much of a sci-fi or a futuristic or a social media or a technology element up until this point. It's mostly just a hostage situation. But then we finally get to speak to the owner of the company, who's played by Topher Grace of That 70s Show. And basically, he just tells him this story of a time when he was driving late at night and he hit or was hit by a drunk driver, and maybe he could have veered out of the way and saved his life and saved his significant other's life if he hadn't been looking at his phone at the time. Because I guess he just got an update on his phone, like, boop, boop, oh, I gotta look at it. It's so fucking aggravating. It's such a stupid ending to the episode. Look, there have been plenty of people who've fucking died looking at their phones in the car. It's a fact of reality. There have been people who've killed themselves. There have been people who've killed the other driver. There have been people who've killed their friends in the car. But the thing is, at the end of the day, you're the one who leaves push notifications on. Turn them off on your phone. You're the one who looks at the phone. You could crash your car into somebody driving into you or someone who's drunk or whatever, looking at your phone, just like you could crash into somebody looking down if you're trying to eat some snacks or something in the car, turning around and looking at somebody in the back seat. Like, people distracted driving and crashing into something isn't like a new scenario because of technology, and it's not like this great moral conundrum is presented just because somebody gets a push notification on their phone. It's such a ridiculous premise. I get that maybe there is room to explore this idea of, yeah, sure, like social media apps are certainly crafted and designed to be addictive, to dominate your time, to present you with messages, communications, news stories that are controversial so that you stay on the app pissed off, like, oh, what the hell is this guy saying? Like, I get that. That's true. That's absolutely the case. But that idea and that concept isn't really explored. It's not an episode about social media addiction. It's not an episode about social media warping your mind. It's an episode about a guy distracted for a fucking second in the car and he crashes it because he's driving like an idiot. I'm sorry, and personally, I don't feel like I need to sympathize that deeply with the character's pain because it's a fake scenario. It's fiction. It's a fake show. I'm not like, making fun of the guy. I'm not making fun of his pain. I'm not making fun of, what happened to him in the show. I'm making fun of the fact that this was literally written and people in our writer's room, or rather Charlie Brooker, who was credited for writing this episode like many other episodes. But still, I imagine he can't be the only person who looked at the script. He wrote this. Other people looked at it and were like, yeah, this is a logical conclusion to this episode. And this is like a watertight moral case being presented here, which is like, I don't know, in my mind, completely ridiculous in comparison with other episodes that presented other technological ideas and other social conundrums, and brought forth a much more chilling and refreshing presentation. Look, when this guy tells his story to Topher Grace, yeah, he feels a little bad, and he certainly has some remorse over it. After it's all said and done, I think there's kind of a fitting ending of everybody just kind of going back to what they were doing and, looking at their phones, and there's a fantastic rendition of Can't Take My Eyes Off of You, which is very fitting, a very apt moment in the episode. But look, Topher Grace's response to this character's monologue, his diatribe, is like, I don't know what to say to you, and sure, it's expressed in a way where it's like, oh, I'm frustrated. I wish the app wasn't this way, and the app used to be one thing, and we used to want it to be another thing, but now, they're designing it to be like a crack pipe. But still, here's the thing. Ultimately, even though it is expressed in frustration, that emotion is expressed in frustration, at the end of the day, there's nothing that Topher Grace has to say to this guy because there's nothing to say to this guy. Like, you shouldn't be looking at your phone while driving, just like you shouldn't be reading a magazine while driving. Just because it's a phone doesn't make the scenario all that different. There are things that you should not be doing while driving. Certainly, if I ever looked at my phone while driving and something horrible were to happen as a result, or if I were to get a ticket or something like that, I certainly wouldn't blame the phone company. I certainly wouldn't blame whatever app I was looking at. That's on me. That's my bad. That's my decision for doing a dumb thing that I should have not have been doing in the car. Because it's not really anybody else's fault but my own. And if we were to be hit with a scenario, or if they were really trying to bring the idea home that the social media app is so addictive that he can't not look at it. He can't not look at it. He has to look at it and put his life and put the life of his significant other in danger. That was certainly not presented because, look, there are tons of people every day who, if a push notification pops up on their phone and they're in the car, they don't look at it. They just leave it. Yeah, that episode was pretty weak. I'm not going to say the acting was bad. The acting was pretty decent. As far as the television hostage scenario, the tension was there. I thought the progression was cool. You were definitely on the edge of your seat for a few moments, wondering, where it was going to go next and if it was going to reach an unfortunate end, prematurely. But still, that's not really the point of Black Mirror to me. The point of Black Mirror is not to watch a goddamn hostage situation. You know what I mean? If you are, it should be a part of an interesting and a creative, technological prospect or scenario or something, and that didn't really occur in this episode. Finally, we have the episode Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2, which for a lot of people is sort of like the crown jewel of steaming piles of crap in this series. The episode features Miley Cyrus, which is just offending a lot of fans right out of the gate. Director Anne Switzky, who I don't think has directed for Black Mirror before, took on this one. But still, Charlie Brooker still wrote this one, just like every episode of this season. And this one was a mixed bag for me. There were elements of it that I liked. There were elements of it that I didn't. Tonally and stylistically, it's really a departure not only from the previous 2 episodes, but every other Black Mirror episode, really. I mean, there's definitely an element of technology there in that we have the character Miley Cyrus is playing, her mind being mapped onto this cute little robot that fans buy because they're just in love with the pop star that Miley is playing in the episode. Her name is Ashley O, and she sings these really kind of bland pop tunes that are just like renditions of Nine Inch Nails tracks, and she wears a pink wig and silvery futuristic looking clothing. And one of these 2 sisters in this episode is obsessed with her, and she gets this little interactive doll that teaches her how to do makeovers and, do the dance moves from the music videos and so on and so forth. And it's really just kind of like a mix of a comedy, a drama, and like a teen girl television series that Nickelodeon would have aired like in the 90s. There was something about the show, the episode, that reminded me of The Secret World of Alex Mack, which meant maybe some of you don't remember, but was this show on Nickelodeon back in the day where this girl had gotten like into a chemical spill, and then she was suddenly given this power where she could like liquidate herself into this silver puddle and then just like, travel anywhere that she wanted to. And there were other powers that she had too. Like, I think that she had like, she could like zap things electrically and stuff like that. But the tone of that show, where you have 2 sisters and there's a sci-fi element, and all of the adults around them are either too naive and dumb to understand anything that's going on, even though all of it's very transparent and in front of their face. And in order to like uncover the big secret, all they would need to be is just like a little bit more curious, or just like in the right place at the right time. So the adults are either so dumb they just can't figure out what's going on, or they're like really evil and they're trying to like, capture her and ruin her life and do terrible things. So that's basically how every adult in this episode was portrayed. They're either too dumb to get anything that's going on, to the point where the sisters have to break back into this pop star's house. And of course, like, one of them just shows up wearing a hat and a hoodie and says that she's like, and again, she's a teenage girl, and she's telling this big buff bodyguard that that she's an exterminator. And he's just like, confused for a second, but he's like, yeah, come in. Okay, come on, come in. And like, everything that she's telling this guy makes no freaking sense whatsoever. And there's a huge comedic element to it all of a sudden, even though everything up until that point wasn't really all that funny or wasn't really all that silly. There's a part where there's not a car chase, but they're in the car having to drive fast to get to somewhere really quickly, and they're taking turns and hitting stuff, and Miley Cyrus and the sisters are in the car going, and it's just like devolved into this completely ridiculous thing that, honestly, like, if it weren't a Black Mirror episode, I would say it's mildly entertaining. It was kind of funny. It was kind of silly. It was tongue in cheek. It was an episode that I think some elements of it you could show to a kid and they would think it's kind of funny, but yet there was also a lot in the episode that wasn't really appropriate for children. Like, there was like lots of swearing and, like adult situations. So, again, there were parts of it that felt like it was written and directed for a kid's show. And then there were parts of it that felt like it was very much like an adult show. I will say that the acting and the chemistry and the interactions between the 2 sisters, I thought were cool. I thought was genuine. I thought Miley Cyrus's voice as like this robot character was actually kind of cool and very appropriate. I think Miley Cyrus's voice is very good for a weird little cartoony robot or something. I think maybe her doing more voice acting in the future could be cool. And I think the episode's depiction of, you know, the pop star being trapped in a cage is you know, accurate to a degree, but I feel like it's pushed so far it doesn't really make sense. We reach a point where this Ashley O pop star is sad, she's depressed, she's not taking her meds, or she's like not really writing all that great material right now. And let me tell you, if that were the problem and if that were the case, a record label or people working around this artist, they would just simply hire out for a songwriter or a co-producer or a co-something in order to like make it happen. Like they wouldn't need to drug this person and put them in a coma and then attach them to some kind of weird cerebral technology where they're extracting the songs from her brain. It's unnecessarily complicated and ridiculous, and it's just I don't know, sort of confusing for me. There's a lot of weird plot holes. There's a lot of weird plot holes, and again, I'll say, a very strange and sudden tonal change to the episode. Whereas in the first leg, it was kind of sad and dark and a little depressive. As soon as the robot is hacked into and swearing and going crazy, then it all of a sudden has this huge element of comedy to it that was not really there before, and the seriousness and the darkness of the episode up until that point pretty much just evaporates. So again, it's a weird tonal change, a very sudden and weird tonal change to the episode that I'm not sure was all that appropriate. Again, I thought it was at least kind of entertaining and silly, that it would end up reminding me of like an old Nickelodeon show or something like that. I mean, I used to love those shows back in the day, so I guess seeing that embodied in a way here, I didn't quite mind. But your average viewer of this show who's loved past Black Mirror episodes is not going to want this. Like, this is very much not what Black Mirror fans like want to see, and I'm not exactly sure what they were thinking when they came out with it, when they wrote it, when they directed it, even if I think this is one of the more admirable episodes of the bunch. At least I was entertained by it. At least I came away liking it mostly, even if there were a bunch of kind of dumb, obnoxious elements to it. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. Again, there was nothing in this season that I disliked as much as my least favorite episodes from the previous season, but it's still a really lackluster season. There wasn't really anything that stood out to me as a great episode, which is sad, which is unfortunate. I hope the next time around we can get a solid 6 episodes and that there are some great ones in that bunch, because there wasn't really a great one here. And that's pretty much how I'm going to have to leave this. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Black Mirror, forever.